Now, from the CBS 4 studios, the best high school coverage from all over the Rio Grande Valley. It's time for Sunday Sports Extra.
It is time for Sunday Sports Extra and time to talk high school football in the Rio Grande Valley with 1 week left in the regular season and the playoff picture starting to come into view but a little fuzzy. I'm Clay Williams, the CBS 4 Sports Director. With me as always, CBS 4 Sports reporter Joe Bowling. And starting with us this week, it is Coach's Corner right off the bat, as it is Bruce Bush, the Executive Director of the Rio Grande Valley chapter of the National Football Foundation, former coach at PSG North, among other schools. That was just your last word, Coach. But,
yes, one of many.
Thanks for joining us, Coach. Let's go ahead and start off with teams that know they are in the playoffs and teams that know that who they're going to be playing in the playoffs. Like a team like San Benito, they know they're going to be playing PSG North in the first round of the playoffs, but that's a week away, and San Benito's still got another game coming up this Saturday against Rivera. How, as a coach, do you approach that situation when you've got a game to go, but you still already know? Do you already game plan for that?
I think a lot depends, Clay. There's a lot of different scenarios out there. I know you got Wesco and Wesco East also both in the playoffs, and their game does not mean anything as far as standings or who they're going to play is concerned, but it means a lot to Wesco and Wesco East. Whereas San Benito is coming off of a hard-fought, mistake-prone ball game, and maybe they're not playing a top-ranked team, and they know who they're playing in the first round. They're probably going to start working a little bit on that first-round playoff game because they know who they're playing. And they know it's going to be a tough ball game that first week, going to be against PSG North, who's just coming off an open date and has Edinburgh the last game. So we know probably PSG North is going to be working on San Benito. Mm-hmm. San Benito is probably going to be working on PSG North a little bit, but they're not telling the kids that. They're not telling the kids that. They're just starting to look at some offensive things and defensive things that they feel like give them problems. But yeah, I think there's different situations, different teams. Come to Wesco and Wesco East. That game is real important. They're going to get prepared and play to win that ball game.
Yeah, the Tanaco Ball 4 coming up, and we know that's going to be a huge game. Both these teams desperately want to win. It is a rivalry, even though it won't make that much difference in the playoffs. But what about a team like McAllen Memorial, Coach, who they've already got everything clinched? Now they have to wonder, how much do you rest a star like Trevor Spates in this final week in a meaningless game? Or how much do you want to keep him going so that he's not rusty when that first week of the playoffs comes around?
Trevor's had just a phenomenal year and 7 touchdowns last week. Gosh, Clay, just a great year, and he's rocking and rolling. And I think that Bill wants to keep that going. And I think what he'll do is he'll try to play Trevor the first half and get a cushion, and maybe start resting a little bit the second half to get him ready for the playoffs.
Coach, let's talk about getting ready for playoffs and go back a little bit to that Harlingen South San Benito game. Mistakes, lots of mistakes. Both teams will admit they made a ton of mistakes. A lot of penalty flags come in. Is that kids trying too hard to make the big play?
I think a lot of that, Joe, Harlingen South in a must-win situation probably they felt like. And their kids are playing hard. And sometimes when they're doing that, then you're going to get a holding penalty because the guy's trying to stay with his block. Or you're going to get a block in the back or a clip because the guy's trying to make a key block down the field. But certainly it was a hard-fought game, but there's a lot of penalties. And also, you got to keep in mind that officials meet before the game. And the officials meet and they may say, this is an important ball game for both teams, so let's don't let anything go. Let's make sure we call everything. And that's what they start doing as the game starts, and then it snowballs. Then there's more and more penalties called. And certainly this was a heartbreaking thing for Harlingen South. And I think Lanny Wilson, he's a great coach. He's as good a coach as in the state of Texas. And his kids really play hard for him. And they could have very easily won the game, but costly penalties. And that's part of the game. But a lot depends on what the officials talk about before the game and what goes on during the ball game.
Is it a kind of game where with that many penalties, you look at, how many the other team got as well? Is that something you compare after the fact and say, all right, we got 14, the other team got 4, the other team got 8, the other team got 10? Is it something you look at and think about?
Certainly as a coach you do to try to feel like maybe the officials are picking on you a little bit, but I don't think that was the case. I think in that ball game there was a lot of officials, a lot of calls on both sides by the officials on San Benito and Harlingen South, but it seemed like it was very costly to Harlingen South at very crucial times of the game. And as a coach, it's very frustrating in the sense that officials are not out there to cheat anybody. They're making calls. They're trying to call the game as they see it and as close as they can. But when it hurts your kids, it really affects you. And I certainly feel for them. Hopefully they can come back and have a big game this week. I know I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Harlingen South, another big grudge match. And if Harlingen looks ahead at all to probably play in West Coast where they're going to get first round, then Harlingen South will get them.
Because that's a big kind of game like that, and which is, we're talking about playoffs around the corner. How do you talk to your kids and say, I don't need you, making that extra effort to the limit of, don't make that block in the back, don't do that. How do you reel that in and keep that in check, getting ready for these big games?
I don't think there's anything. Coach talks to the kids before we take the field about playing fair and let's not have any costly penalties. But when a kid gets out there and the adrenaline starts going, and you're in a big ball game with a big crowd, you certainly can't control the extra effort that's going to happen. Football is a game of reflexes. A lot of times it's not a thought process goes into a play. It's all reflexes, and sometimes they're just trying so hard that they make costly penalties.
All right, that is Coach's Corner with Coach Bruce Bush, getting us ready for the final week of the season and what's coming up in the playoffs. I want to thank you so much for joining us off the top,
Thank
Coach.
you, Clay.
All right, we are coming back on Sunday Sports Extra. We're going to talk about some of the other big games that happened this past week, including, we're going to talk about Tinaco Bowl 4 and make our picks on the big Wesco East matchup. And also, we're going to talk about those War Dogs. San Benito now looking good into the playoffs as they clinch a playoff spot. We'll hear from the big guy who made the big play coming up next.